All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the KBFA podcast. I am your host, Mr. Lonnie Hobbs Jr. Unfortunately, I don't have my co host with me today, Mr. Justin Howard, but Justin sends his best wishes. So we'll dive right in today. We have a special guest with us, Mr. Matt Durler from National Sorghum Producers. So, Matt, let's begin with your story. Share with our viewers who you are, your ag journey, and how you got to the role that you currently hold.
Yeah, thanks, Lonnie. Glad to be here this morning. Matt Durler grew up in southwest Kansas near Dodge City. Legacy farm down there. We've been farming in that general vicinity since my great great grandfather came to the United States back in the late 1800s. So, fourth generation farmer, as well as the things I do off the farm. Married with four kids that trying to get back engaged in that as well. So, my professional journey's kind of wandered a little bit. Spent some time as a commodities broker, and then got into the ethanol production. And I've continued on the commercial side of the ethanol business into roles where now we're integrating more with the farmers. So maybe jack of all, master of none, one of those kind of deals, but blessed to have been in agriculture pretty much my whole life.
Oh, man, that is beautiful. I'm glad to hear that. What type of farming did you guys do, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so still engaged in the farm, but we're all dry land out there. Wheat, sorghum, fallow kind of rotation, and we run some cattle on the side. So
Oh, yeah. Of course, sorghum. Of course. So, Matt, can you give us a brief overview of the national sorghum producers as a whole?
yeah, so National Sorghum Producers works very closely with Sorghum Checkoff, but we're a producer-led organization of about 5,000 members throughout the United States, coast to coast, but heavily centered in the heartland. Kansas is actually the largest sorghum production state in the country. So a lot of presence here locally, but really advocate and educate producers, make sure that we have farm policy that serves our members well, and are here as a resource for whatever the issues they may have.
Oh, yes. And myself and Justin had the pleasure of meeting Matt at the annual KBFA meeting here, I want to say last month. And as a part of that meeting, our goals kind of overlap in educating the farmers. Of course, Matt and National Sorghum Producers take it a step further with policy initiatives, but we just thought that it was a good merger to have Matt to join us on the podcast today. So we appreciate you for being here, Matt. So I see that you are a managing director with National Sorghum Producers. What does that role entail?
It's kind of all encompassing from a lot of interaction with the USDA and making sure we understand the goals of the program for our Climate Smart grant and some of the rules and the opportunities for collaboration with some of the other folks in the space, as well as producer engagement. And a lot of time is trying to build out the program to make sure we have it in a way that's really functional for the farmers. I'm really blessed to have a tremendously talented staff with me, but maybe jack of all, master of none is a good way to look at it.
Got you. Oh, man. So let's take a step back, Matt. I'm sure you've held many impactful roles on your journey to the career that you're in and the current role that you hold. How has your journey helped your success in the current role?
Well, I know a lot of what not to do. I've been really blessed. I've had some tremendous opportunities at a young age, from managing ethanol plants to trading feed and grain and some other producer organizations as well. But no matter how you get an education, you're always going to pay for it, right? And each one of those opportunities is just a way to kind of refine how you want to look at things going forward. And really been blessed to have met some tremendous people along the way, which I can lean on and still consider to be mentors. So was a plant manager in an ethanol plant before I turned 26. So when you have 45
Man.
employees when you're young, you learn a lot of what you're not going to do again, right? Those sort of opportunities shape how you want to go forward, and you meet people that you can lean on and different approaches to things. And I think this is all the people deal, right? You treat people well, you build out a network that you can lean on, and you really find a lot of ways to connect with other people in agriculture. And that's the best thing about ag to me. It's the last place where you can still do business with a handshake, and that means a
Very
lot.
true. Very, very true. Very true. And we're constantly preaching that, man. I'm glad to hear you say this is a people business. We don't recognize just how much the success of ag depends on successful partnerships and people taking the time, like you said, to not only do those deals, but end those deals with a handshake. So I'm glad to hear that, Matt. So if you don't mind, I'd like to switch gears for a second.
Sure.
Let's talk national sorghum producer programs and resources. What are some of the programs and resources for farmers offered by the national sorghum producers?
So I'll start with the Climate Smart Grant. It's
Okay.
my main responsibility here. So the Climate Smart Grant looks to use farm practices to reduce the carbon intensity of the feedstuffs, which would primarily go into biofuels market with.
Okay.
And with that, we have direct payments to the producers for enacting those farm level practices. Maybe it's no till or minimum till, precision nitrogen application, those sorts of things that reduce the carbon emissions of the production, but also create an opportunity then to market a differentiated grain. So
Mhm.
that's a lot of what I'm focused on. But then we also have NRCS support on staff, as well as agronomists that can kind of help producers navigate changes, or the challenge of each season seems to be a little different. So we work very closely with both the national checkoff and the state level organizations just to try to provide support for the farmers wherever we can.
Oh man, that is key. That is very key. Shameless plug. Big shout out to USDA NRCS. We have a lot
Absolutely.
of partnerships with them at KBFA also. And you guys are doing a great job of providing resources and education to our farmers as well. So, shameless plug on that. And that Climate Smart grant, Matt, we are very aware of that at KBFA. It is an awesome grant, awesome program that I believe we may even be involved in.
Yes, sir.
Um, so, let me ask this for farmers who are, excuse me, for farmers who are interested in participating in these programs and opportunities, what are the requirements to participate and how can they take advantage of the resources you guys offer?
So I think the biggest thing for all programs right now, farmers realize they're in the data business now, and that's probably the biggest challenge. Is access to records so we can see, hey, we are changing our farming practices. This is how much fertilizer we're using, and some of those sorts of things. So getting comfortable with just documenting the farm practices as we go forward. That's really a lot of this, right? And we've got really good people to help work with them. So if somebody wants to be part of the program, they can reach out directly to me at matt@sorghumgrowers.com, and we can connect the dots either with me personally sitting down with them or one of my staff, and we'll just sit down on the farm and go through things and make sure that they understand here's the things we're doing within the program. And really, the only key stipulation is we can't pay for a practice that they're already getting paid from maybe EQIP or CSP, one of these NRCS programs. This has to be different. Now, if somebody's getting paid for no-till, we can still pay them for precision in on top of that. And
Mhm.
there's some of those pieces, or cover crop on top of it. We just can't double pay for the same practice. We want to make sure we're in compliance there. But also, we understand every farmer is different, right? And we want to sit down and understand, hey, what parts of this fit for your operation and what parts maybe don't, instead of trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. So we take a lot of pride in producer relationships. Sit down, have a very common conversation, lay out the data requirements and the reporting expectations. The good news is each farmer can get up to $28,750 a year in this program. And that's a tremendous help when you look at farm economies getting tight again. We're not talking
Mhm.
about $7 corn. We got December corn trading 460 today. So it's a big help as margins get tight.
Oh, yes, man. And farmers, as he said, $28,000. Do not leave that money on the table. Get connected with Matt and the National Sorghum Producers and that Climate Smart Grant. That is a awesome opportunities for all farmers. And that's not only here in Kansas, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Excuse me. The sorghum farmers from the southern part of Nebraska, all through Kansas, Oklahoma, eastern Colorado, and New Mexico, as well as the north half of Texas. So very regional here to the high plains.
Okay. All right. So with that climate smart grant, that kind of taps into climate change and soil health. And in agriculture in recent years, we've heard the term sustainability, sustainable ag practice a lot lately. What is National Sorghum Producers' commitment to sustainability and climate soil health? And how are you implementing this into your operations and resources?
Yeah, so I think as a producer organization, we start with if it don't make dollars, it won't make sense, right? This has to be financially viable. And
Very
the
true.
same way we're talking about programs, each farm sustainability looks a little different, but it means how do we leave it better than we got it? And how do we make sure we have it for the next generation?
Oh,
So when we talk about no-till and minimum till or cover crops and these things, really, how do we do more with less, but also enact these tools to be more efficient? So if we're really good with our soil health, we actually get better with our nitrogen efficiency, which is great for the bottom line. It's great for the environment. And we're a little less dependent on countries across the pond that maybe aren't too favorable for us, where our fertilizer comes from.
mhm.
Less dependence on China and Russia is a big deal long term for our food security. So when we think about soil health, most of the areas where sorghum is grown are the drier climates. It's the tougher places to be to start with. So managing moisture and maintaining that soil is a huge part of what we're doing, and that's where no-till and some cover crops really come in well. Is we can reduce that evaporation and save that precious water, which is usually our first limiting resource in this part of the country. We're not blessed with 50 or 60 inches of rain like they may be in the eastern corn belt. We're trying to get by on 18 or 20, and sometimes
That's true.
15. So soil health really lays in well with just resource management and soil conservation. And I think that'll is self-fulfilling in and of itself.
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. That is very true. So, kind of tapping into that, what are some of the incentives then that NSP offers to farmers for implementing sustainable ag practices?
So, in a very general sense, if you stack together a combination of these farm practices, no till and minimum till with some precision into cover crop, or even if they're an irrigated farmer and they're enhancing their management, most farmers are going to qualify for $50 to $60 an acre in premiums for those practices on their sorghum acres. So, if they aren't comfortable going the whole way, maybe they just want to start with precision in. We could look at more acres at a smaller payment, but really it's about working with the producer to meet them where they are today, and then help them take those next steps. And in doing so, we're also trying to find that market that values these lower carbon commodities. So working closely with the local ethanol plants and having some good conversations with the food and pet food companies as well around, hey, how do we tell the story of our American farmer and the efficiency with which we do things, and try to add value throughout the supply chain, both domestically and for a lot of these commodities that may be getting shipped overseas. How do we tell our story?
Definitely. Definitely. So, within that, Matt, I want to dial it back just a sec. As we know, training the next generation is vital to continued success and evolution of the ag space. So, given that, what are some of the initiatives and resources that you guys offer to students and young men and women interested in ag and potentially the sorghum industry?
So this is near and dear to me, Lonnie. I appreciate the question. I've got 4 kids, and I'm fortunate the older ones say they want to stay in agriculture and communications or vet medicine, that kind of thing. But it's how do we provide that opportunity? So I'm a big believer in 4-H and FFA at the school level, and then we also offer internships within National Sorghum and the Sorghum Checkoff to try to get people engaged in what we're doing. And actually, very fortunate to just hired a former intern to be our inclusion and diversity director.
Oh,
She's
my.
a tremendous young lady. They did an internship for us 2 years ago that didn't actually come from the ag space. Came from inner city, so to speak. Just a city kid that loved agriculture and uh, was comfortable being uncomfortable, putting herself out there. And there's nothing better than we see people that come through an internship program then become leaders within our organization or go on to lead within other organizations. And we build out such a network there. So for for kids that are really engaged or interested, we're happy to connect that dot, or potentially even just participate with another internship that might be going on to get them experience within the farm community for a short period of that. So definitely encourage anybody that wants to stay in ag to reach out to us. We'll help find resources even within us or within others in agriculture, because people really want to see young people come back into ag. We've got to grow
Very
the
true.
next generation to have a future. And diverse backgrounds help a lot because our consumers are just as diverse as the people that want to be in the space, right?
Yes. Yes, yes. Man, that is so key, Matt. That is so key. As you said, we must train up the younger generation to follow in our footsteps and even take this agriculture space and industry to new heights, man.
Well,
So I really
what's great
appreciate
for us
that.
right now, Lonnie, is for the first time in my lifetime, ag sexy. People see farming as an opportunity to lead climate change through efficiency, right?
Yes,
People want to be involved in ag, and that's so exciting. So many opportunities here today that I wouldn't have thought I would be there 20 years ago.
very true. Very true. I'm gonna have to make that into a shirt. Ag is sexy. Oh my. So this has been awesome, Matt. I really appreciate your insight, the information that you've given us about national sorghum producers and the resources that's available. So before we close, I would like to hear your personal thoughts on something. As a sorghum industry professional, what do you think are some things that farmers should be aware of or embrace in the upcoming years?
So I think transparency only grows from this point forward. People want to know where their food comes from, but that data is power. If you can tell the story of your farm and you can kind of decommoditize that, you can find premiums by telling your story and how you do things more efficiently. So we may not love record keeping, but if the producer embraces that, there's tremendous opportunities. And look at partnering with your local elevator or building your own storage so that you
Mhm.
can IP your grain. Find that place where you can get paid to be different, because
Yeah.
there's definitely an opportunity to do so. And every time you get an opportunity, look to connect with an end user. So the more you understand about your value chain, the more power that you have in your marketing. And I also
Mhm.
very much encourage people get involved in these leadership programs, whether it's Kansas Ag Leadership or we have a leadership sorghum thing, to see different parts of the country. It gives you perspective on things that are moving, but knowledge is power. Know your end users, control your own destiny. I think there's tremendous opportunity there.
Oh man. Oh man. Wise words, Matt. I have to give you a round of applause, my friend. I do, man. This is this has been awesome, Matt. And like I said, we really appreciate you for joining us on this podcast. Very insightful, a lot of information on resources, programs, NSP, and some of the things that we should be looking to tackle in agriculture. So I want to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of KBFA. Thank you from myself. And before we wrap up, any departing thoughts?
Good here, but very much appreciate the opportunity to come visit you today and the partnership with KBFA in general. Look forward to the things we can do going forward.
Yes. And then the resources that you talked about with NSP, do you know the NSP's website or where they can find this information?
Sure. Yeah, you can go to www.sorghumgrowers.com. Jennifer and our staff do a tremendous job of outreach and marketing. We also have a sorghum magazine you can go to as well.
All right. There you have it. Well, we are wrapping up for today's section of the KBFA podcast. I want to thank Matt again and the National Sorghum Producers. And we hope that you guys continue to look out for more episodes. You have a good one.
Thanks so much, Lonnie.